really meaningful. So I'm always on the lookout for objects.
Hello, I'm David Eads with BBC World News. Our top stories: at least 6 people are killed after a bus stop is shelled in Donetsk. International monitors say more than 5,000 people have now died in fighting in Ukraine. Senior diplomats from more than 20 countries meet in London to coordinate efforts to combat so-called Islamic State. A €1 trillion cash injection for the Eurozone. Bankers are expected to announce a massive stimulus package. And with elections just days away, we assess the mood in Greece, where the main anti-austerity party leads the polls. Hello, thanks for joining us. We start in eastern Ukraine, where the violence just goes on, despite renewed calls for a ceasefire at peace talks in Berlin on Wednesday. Now, at least 6 people were killed in this latest incident. It was a shelling of a bus stop. This is right in the centre of the rebel-held city of Donetsk. The Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, whose monitors have been at the scene of this attack, say that the 9-month conflict has now cost more than 5,000 lives and forced 1 million people out of their homes. Ukraine's military also says its forces have pulled back from a key terminal at Donetsk airport. This has been the scene, of course, of months of fighting. The BBC's David Stern is in Kiev.
This is nothing new. I guess you could say we, in fact, had an incident just last week where a rocket shell hit near another bus outside of Donetsk, killing 13. But yes, of course, this is yet another horrific incident, and just brings home how bad the fighting is getting in just the last few days. We don't know how many people died in this recent attack. There are reports of 6, 9, and maybe even as high as 13. Apparently, reports are coming in that this was a mortar attack. Although that hasn't been confirmed, but that is significant because mortars have a much shorter span. The Ukrainian army says that they're not close enough for one, although that doesn't rule out a chance of another group coming in of the Ukrainian army or otherwise.
Well, that's David Stern in Kiev. With me is Alexei Solobenko, who's the BBC's Ukraine analyst. Alexei, how is this being spun at the moment from essentially both the main sides here?
The usual accusations of each other. Basically, the Ukrainian position is that it looks like it's a mortar. It looks like it was fired within the zone where there are no Ukrainian troops. The Ukrainian army is at least 15 kilometers away. If it's a mortar, they have the range of about 5 kilometers. Mortar is not disputed by the rebels, but the rebels say it was a hit squad by the Ukrainian army that penetrated the lines, and some are saying that they even detained it. But all these details are important as part of a bigger blame. Say the Russian media, Live News, for example, one of the key channels that is always on the scene of such things in Russia, is already blaming the Ukrainian army for the mass murder. There were some horrible scenes of Ukrainian prisoner of war being brought to the site, and the mob of very, very angry and emotional people is beating him up. So those things are elements in a much bigger blame game between basically Russia and Ukraine, blaming each other. And despite the various reports of progress at Berlin talks among the foreign ministers, for example, nothing is changing on the ground, and it's not clear how in the months to come this will change.
No, and one wonders how those talks might move ahead, not least when, I mean, the Americans seem pretty clear in their language. Now a Russian occupation plan, I think, was the language being used by the US ambassador to the UN. How can these talks move forward at the moment?
It's very difficult how they can move forward, because I think the important thing for them to move back in a way, because in Minsk in September the sides agreed some key elements: the withdrawal of heavy weaponry, monitoring of the separation line between the two sides, and crucially control of the Ukrainian-Russian border by the Ukrainian forces rather than by the rebels. Because the biggest suspicion and the biggest fuel of this conflict is the supply and resupply of weaponry, heavy munitions, of missiles, of equipment, and according to the Ukrainian authorities, also regular troops of the Russian Federation across the border, which prop up the rebels and which accelerate the conflict as we see it. But I mean, for the people on the ground, frankly, those negotiations probably are looking far-fetched, because for them, death, destruction on a daily basis, killing of children, killing of elderly people, killing on the bus stops is the reality of war, rather than the reality or perceived reality of various negotiations and various documents that are being signed.
And I suppose classically, in a way, those people caught in Donetsk, and we've seen the pictures there, the state of Donetsk is just extraordinary, isn't it? They are pawns in this bigger game.
They are, but they are also actors in this game, because it would be very, very difficult. Whatever happens in a year's time, in 2 years' time, whatever the status of those territories, the bitter attitudes of people now, what this war is doing, is basically separating people who are living together and not really caring whether they spoke Russian, whether they spoke Ukrainian. They were citizens of one country, and now they're bitter enemies within one country. And it's very, very difficult to see how peace will come into their minds. Peace may be on the ground, but not necessarily in the minds of the people in years to come.
Alexei, thanks very much. To a meeting now of diplomats from 22 countries, which is getting underway in London, and that's to discuss how to tackle the jihadist group Islamic State. Ministers want to find ways of halting the flow of recruits to IS, also of cutting off its funding. The US Secretary of State John Kerry is co-hosting this conference with the British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond. This is what Mr. Kerry had to say just a short while ago about the aim of the gathering.
We are critically dependent on all 60-plus nations that are engaged in this effort. But as we have put this together now in a matter of a few months, we have gone from 0 at the end of September to now in January, in our 4th month, having stopped ISIL's advance in Iraq, having negated their resources, their capacity to move foreign fighters to a significant degree, and changed their operations as a result of what we've been able to do. We still have a lot of work to do. And the purpose of coming here is to bring everybody's best advice, everybody's thoughts about where there may be weaknesses, everybody's thoughts about things we can do better, put that together, improve our own performance and operation, and lay down the strategy for the days ahead.
John Kerry. Well, Gilles de Kerchove is the EU's counter-terrorism coordinator, and he joins me live from our Brussels bureau. Gilles de Kerchove, thanks very much for joining us. We hear John Kerry there saying that we've stopped IS advances, we're negating their resources, changing their operations. Perhaps the perception's a little bit different to many people. What do you think should be done at this stage to halt some of these challenges, to affect, I should say, some of the challenges that IS poses?
There are different lines of actions. Of course, military strikes is one of them, but it's not enough. We all agree on this. So we have to, in Europe, to be more effective in stemming the flow of foreign fighters, and that's exactly what heads of state and government will most likely discuss on the 12th of February. We have to work on the propaganda of IS, and we know how much this organization is IT savvy, very excellent in communication, so we have to be as good as they are. We have to dry up their resource, yes. It's a lot on the spot. It's the oil smuggling, it's extortion, organized crime, kidnapping for ransom. And we have to help, and that we've started doing, the government of Mr. Abadi in Iraq to really have a more inclusive policy so that we can put a wedge ahead between the Sunni tribes, the Lashkar-Bandi, and the core group of jihadists in Iraq.
Right, let's bring you back to the point you raised at the start. It's about recruits going out from Europe, essentially, to Iraq and Syria, and the extent of measures to stop them doing it. How far do you think, realistically, can individual governments go?
They have already individually developed several measures. In some countries, they have managed to really stem the flow. But we need to work more collectively, and that's what we've started doing in the last 2 years, and especially about border control, external border control. There are some ideas to make them more systematic, more harmonized, to feed more the different database, and also to work on the root causes. But that's long term. So I would tend to think that very quick improvement at the external border is one solution, and work on the internet as well. And we've started engage with the big internet companies.
I suppose the point you make is long-term, isn't it? These sorts of discussions are about a holistic approach, I guess, but they are about long-term. They're not about short-term dealing with the issue, are they?
Some are short-term, like trying to define common risk indicators in order to make the check more effective at the external border. Indeed, make them systematic will require legislation that will take 2-3 years, so effectively it's more medium, long-term. But in the short run, by pulling more data together at Europol and by defining common risk indicators, I think we can already achieve some result.
Big challenge, isn't it? Gilles de Kerkhoff, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now to the Greek election campaign. It's into its final 2 days and the main anti-austerity party is leading in the opinion polls. That's the left-wing Syriza party. It's got a 5 percentage point lead over the governing Conservatives, which rather suggests it's in line to become certainly the biggest party in the general election on Sunday. Success for Syriza could lead to something of a standoff with European Union and IMF lenders and even a possible exit from the Eurozone itself. Well, could Syriza end up with an overall parliamentary majority? Our Athens correspondent is Mark Lowen. He's been gauging opinion at a market in the centre of the capital.
Well, that's certainly what it's aiming for, David. It wants an overall majority. At the moment, the opinion polls point to the fact that it may need to find a coalition partner. But it has a platform which doesn't appeal to many other parties. It wants to renegotiate the austerity completely. It wants to write off half of Greek debt. It's going to take a very firm line indeed with Europe. And so it will struggle, I think, to find a coalition partner to sit with it. This is, of course, where the Eurozone financial crisis first erupted 4.5 years ago. And we're still talking about all these problems of recession and austerity and bailouts. Look, this lovely market here, these olives on sale. How more Greek can you get than that? Fantastic vegetables and fruit here. It looks lively, it looks healthy, it looks like business is doing well, but actually beneath the surface it's a very, very sad picture indeed. Unemployment over 25%. Pensions and salaries have been cut by 40%. People are really struggling, and that is why they are still contemplating voting for something completely new. Let's talk to Stathis here, who is selling the lovely cured meats at this market. Stathis, how do you feel about the situation at the moment? How has austerity affected you?
The situation is pretty bad at the moment. The economy is not going very well, and we're waiting for the elections. We hope that Monday is going to be a better day for our country here.
Have you decided who you're going to vote for in the election on Sunday?
Yes, of course I do have, but I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do. All I want is to change the whole situation.
What needs to change?
To change the whole thing. The economy problem we have here in Greece. We're waiting. And all we want is from Europe is to let us decide what we want for our future, to let us vote freely.
That's because you feel they're putting pressure on Greece to vote a certain way?
Pressure, and you know the reason why. Because of the money we need from the Europe.
Yes, Stathis, thank you very much indeed. Well, Europe has indeed given Greece 230 billion euros over the years. So there is a feeling from Berlin, from Brussels, from other countries in Europe that they want Greece to stick to its current path. But really here, people are willing to try something new. So desperate are they. We'll have all the results and an analysis live for you here on BBC World News in the coming days. David, back to you.
So breaking news from Nigeria, as the National Security Advisor to the President, Goodluck Jonathan, has said that he has advised the Electoral Commission to delay next month's election. Sambo Dasuki said that this was to give enough time to distribute voters' cards. 30 million of them still have to be sent out. So that news just coming in. And with me is Aliu Tanko of the BBC's Hausa service. Aliu, 30 million voters' cards, that's a lot of cards. Says something about the organisation of this election, doesn't it?
Yes, because a total of over 68 million voters are expected to vote next month. And of course, the Nigerian Electoral Commission seemed not to have distributed up to half of permanent voters card in the country. And there have been outcry because our reporters in BBC Hausa have visited different polling units in northern Nigeria and even in southern part of the country, where the place is very, very chaotic. People have to spend a lot of time on the queue to get their permanent voters card. Prominent Nigerians have been reported not to have even received their permanent voters card. One of the Nigerian newspapers quoted a governor in the central region in the country saying former heads of state, General Babangida and Abdusalami Abubakar, are yet to receive their permanent voters card. So if high-profile Nigerians are yet to receive their permanent voters card, what comes of ordinary Nigerians?
I mean, that certainly sounds a mess, but dare I say, is anyone reading any more into it than a sort of organisational cock-up? Because it's not as if the government's in a terribly favourable light at the moment, is it? Do they want to put the elections off?
Well, at the moment there are two things. One, people have been seeing the electoral umpire, that's INEC, have not been doing enough to prepare for this election. They had like 4 years to prepare election, but most of, over half of the voters are yet to receive their permanent voters card. Another thing is so many things are not done at the right time. Even though late last year there was an outcry that the federal government was yet to release the total amount meant for this election, but later on the Independent Electoral Commission said they had received all these amounts. However, the Nigerian opposition will not take this advice from senior government official in the presidency very lightly, because recently they have been saying that we reject any postponement of Nigeria's election, we reject anything that has to do with interim national government, so many things. So this is coming at a time when the opposition will not be happy, because they have been campaigning vigorously to get Nigerians in their hearts.
We'll keep a close watch on that. Aliu, for now, thank you very much. And thank you for being with us here on BBC World News. Still to come in the programme, in the land of the pyramids, a project that even the pharaohs would envy. We've got an exclusive report on the work to double the capacity of the Suez Canal.
I'm Stephen Sacker. Join me on Hard Talk on BBC World News.
This year, Barack Obama will be the first American president to attend the Republic Day parade in Delhi. But beyond the crowds and the celebrations, what will he make of modern India? I'm Matthew Amreliwala, and I'll be in India for a week of programmes tackling the real issues facing the country today, from equality and education to trade, terrorism and technology. Global goes to India with me, Matthew Amreliwala.
Compared to 1990, is the world economy bigger? Yes, it's now twice as big. Are more families living in absolute poverty? No, extreme poverty rates have halved. But are people happier? It depends. For more on the winners, losers and what this wealthier world means for us, a new season of debates, documentaries and news stories. A richer world on the BBC.
Next on Hard Talk, economist Luigi Zingales. He says American capitalism is in crisis and blames the links between big government and big business. So is he right that it's time for a rediscovery and renewal of the moral foundation of capitalism?
The Asian Cup certainly lived up to its billing so far, with plenty of goals in the group stage. Now we'll find out who can lift the trophy in Sydney. I'm Manny Jasby. Join me as BBC World News brings you all the action and reaction from Australia.
This is BBC World News. I'm David Eads. These are the latest headlines. More violence in eastern Ukraine. At least 6 people are killed after a bus stop is shelled in the rebel-held city of Donetsk. And senior diplomats from more than 20 countries are meeting in London to discuss the fight against so-called Islamic State. Egyptian officials say the expansion of the Suez Canal, one of the world's most important trade corridors, will be completed on time in August. The chairman of the Canal Authority has told the BBC work's going on around the clock to finish a new lane, which will double the capacity of the waterway. Well, the canal's 146 years old now. It links the Mediterranean and the Red Sea and is the fastest shipping route between Europe and Asia. In all, it handles 7% of global seaborne trade. Our correspondent, Orla Gearing, was given rare access to the canal.
An aerial display over a prized asset, the Suez Canal. This promotional video showcases the historic waterway, a source of national pride and revenue. It's being expanded by order of Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, a flagship scheme aimed at refloating a battered economy. A second canal is being carved out of the desert. It was supposed to take 3 years. The president decreed it should take only 1. Here is the vision for the future. The new lane will allow two-way traffic in part of the waterway, reducing waiting and transit times. We were taken along the canal on a tugboat, seeing some of the works along the way. The Egyptian public has funded all this, investing $8.5 billion in just 8 days.
It's rare to get access to the Suez Canal. It's under tight military control. It has always been of huge strategic importance to Egypt, and it brings in badly needed hard currency. The hope is the new canal under construction will double the number of ships going through and increase revenues. But more than this, officials say the new waterway will be a symbol of the new Egypt.
The admiral in charge told me the first ship will sail through the new lane in August, meeting the 1-year deadline and creating a legacy for future generations.
The Suez Canal is history for Egypt. Okay, our grandfathers digging the Suez Canal, and we will digging the new Suez Canal. Not for us, but for the future and for our children and our grandchildren, and not for Egypt only, but for all the world.
The Suez Canal, never far from the news in its 87 years of history, hits the headlines like a bombshell.
A news report from 1956, when Egypt seized the canal from Britain and France. A moment of triumph for President Gamal Abdel Nasser and the Egyptian people. The canal remains a symbol of national pride here, but experts say the money to expand it might be better spent elsewhere.
In the case of the Suez Canal, it's a patriotic project, first of all, by developing something that people can feel proud of. And that's very difficult to quantify. From an economic point of view, it can be argued, and I think pretty well, that around $8 billion could have been better used on upgrading Egypt's infrastructure, of power stations, on upgrading the railway infrastructure, mass public transport in the cities, new trams, for example, new housing.
But the authorities are banking on landmark projects like this one. They can't afford to fail here. Without tangible economic progress, there could be more unrest on the horizon. Orla Gearing, BBC News at the Suez Canal.
Breaking news from Cairo, as an Egyptian court has ordered the release of the 2 sons of the former and ousted President Hosni Mubarak, pending a corruption retrial. Now, this is according to a judicial official. Their lawyer, Farid Al-Deeb, has told AFP news agency that Alaa and Gamal Mubarak were free to leave prison after the court order because they'd served the maximum pre-trial detention period. So Mubarak's 2 sons are out or due to be released any moment. We wait for any news on Hosni Mubarak himself. Iran's supreme leader has written a letter to young people in Europe and America implying that the West has tried to spread hatred of Islam. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's letter follows the terror attack in France, of course, which led to the deaths of 17 people. And he appeals to young people in the West to guard against what he calls disinformation campaigns and urges them to gain knowledge of Islam firsthand by reading the Quran and other primary sources. Well, with me now is Siavash Ardalan from our BBC Persian service. Siavash, interesting letter. Why do you think he felt the need to put this out?
Well, obviously, he wasn't hoping to boost the sales of the Quran or the original Islamic script, or for young Westerners to log on to his website where the message was published. I think it's more a PR exercise trying to make the point, and hopefully through the media coverage in the Western world, try to deliver the point that Iran is not associated with the kind of activities we've seen from ISIS or Al-Qaeda, that Iran's brand of Shia Islam is different to the brand of Sunni extremism that we've been seeing.
Quite hard-hitting in terms of what he's had to say about Europe and North America and their colonial past. But what sort of response, if not from Western Europe necessarily, but from within, what sort of response has there been to this?
Well, as the news came out of his message was published last night, so the Iranian press haven't had time to run it, but the Iranian state TV have been running it obviously as a top story whenever the Supreme Leader says something. And in the commentary, they actually look at the Western media coverage of it as the extensive reaction in the world to the Supreme Leader's message. But among the Iranian social media, it's very interesting to see what Iranians themselves are saying. Obviously, the Iranian social media is a venue for Iranian critics to express their opinions, not supporters of the government. The supporters would naturally salute the Supreme Leader for delivering such a message. But the critics have some interesting anecdotes. I've brought some here with me. For example, some have said to the Supreme Leader, you yourself are limiting our access to the internet, yet you use this medium to deliver your message to the West. Some have said that, well, have you asked the Western youngsters, after reading the primary sources of Islam, to go and assassinate Salman Rushdie? Obviously referring to the contradiction now here existing between some 25 years ago when the Iranian Supreme Leader asked everyone to assassinate Salman Rushdie and the activities that we've seen in Paris. And we have had another commentary here says, let's hope that the Western youth don't go. This is obviously from an Iranian atheist, a secularist, who's saying, let's go, hope they don't go and read the Quran, because then they will really be confirmed about their fears of Islam.
Well, certainly plenty of response. Siavash, thanks very much indeed for that. And thank you for watching BBC World News on the day when at least 6 people are killed after a bus stop is shelled in Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. This is BBC World News.
Research proves that smiling releases endorphins and lowers stress. So for your next convention, meet in the Philippines, where fun works.
Hello there. A winter storm developing across the northeast corner of the United States as we head on in towards the weekend. Before we reach that point, though, we'll see some pretty heavy snow across southern areas of the United States. Cold air moving south in towards this area of heavy thundery rain, which will continue to move eastwards along the Gulf states, potentially bringing about some flooding through Thursday and on into Friday. The snow gradually fizzling out, though, and let's more focus on the heavy rain. Weather systems pushing in off the Pacific will bring a lot of unsettled weather to the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia by the end of the week, with some significant snow falling over the Canadian Rockies. Heavy thundery rains continue to affect parts of southeastern Africa. I think a bit of a brief respite for Malawi, but it does look like parts of Mozambique and certainly northern Madagascar being battered by further torrential rain as we head on in towards Friday. Lots of fine settled weather through the Middle East after the recent thunderstorms that we've had with flash flooding in places. We see a return to lighter winds and plenty of sunshine as we head through Friday, with temperatures around the low to upper 20s Celsius across southern parts of the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. A few showers and thunderstorms affecting southeastern portion of India and in towards Sri Lanka. To the north, a little bit of fair weather cloud, but largely fine and dry. And the heavy snow that we've seen across northern Pakistan, northwest India and Nepal gradually easing down, but still a very high avalanche risk here. Much of eastern China will be fine and dry on Friday. Quite chilly with it, but at least lots of sunshine. Chilly as well for the Korean Peninsula and in towards Japan. Further south that you head, obviously, it is much warmer. In fact, temperatures in Bangkok around the mid-30s Celsius. Some showers and storms continuing to affect a good swathe of Malaysia and Indonesia. Some heavy rain as well affecting the Northern Territory of Australia that seem to be moving a bit further north. So some dry weather for Darwin on Friday. However, Queensland and northern parts of New South Wales will continue to see some very heavy thunderstorms.